I grew up surrounded by the warm, comforting embrace of my family's humble home. The aroma of fresh pastries baked at dawn enveloped the air, mixing with laughter and love that painted the walls of our fragile sanctuary. Whenever I inhaled the sweet scent of cinnamon and sugar drifting from the kitchen, I could almost forget the sacrifices my parents endured to provide us with a semblance of a stable life. I remember racing down the hall, my heart racing like the ticking clock on our wall, eager to catch my mother before she dashed off to her second job. As I held my own son, David, that bright spring morning, everything changed. With his fragile form cradled against my chest, I felt a tide of hope and responsibility wash over me. I whispered promises into his tiny ear, vowing that he would never know the struggle I faced as a child. "You will have everything I never did," I vowed, determined to create a life filled with opportunities for him, where love outweighed the burdens. As David grew, each milestone became a testimony to my commitment. I worked multiple jobs, juggling late shifts and early mornings, all to ensure he had the education he needed and the experiences I had wished for myself. When he sang in the school choir, my heart swelled with pride. As a young boy, his laughter filled our modest kitchen, where we shared secrets over family recipes passed down through generations. I delighted in those moments, stirring a pot of sauce as he recounted stories from school, eyes sparkling with excitement. I made sacrifices, forgoing my dreams and ambitions to nurture his. I remember the heartache of setting aside my passion for painting, shelves of forgotten canvases holding the weight of my quiet yearning. But I took solace in knowing those sacrifices molded David into a thoughtful, kind-hearted man. I found joy in my identity as his mother, baking cookies on sleepless nights amid his studies, reveling in the warmth of our ritual. Yet, as David prepared to embark on adulthood, the world beyond our familial haven loomed ominously, pulling at the thread of our bond. I often sensed the subtle winds of change unfurling against the fabric of our lives when he began to carve his path toward independence. When he introduced me to Eliza, I wanted to believe that the charming girl standing before me, with her bright smile and sparkling eyes, would embrace the values I had instilled in him. The golden hues of a spring evening bathed the room as I welcomed her with open arms, hoping that she would add to our family tapestry the intricate stitches of tradition, respect, and love. But as I looked back over the years, I would come to realize that it was the very bond we had shared, the foundation built on trust, love, and sacrifice, that would become a battleground. Love sometimes transforms into vulnerability in ways we least expect. Where Eliza would enter the scene as a potential daughter, I remained blissfully unaware of the fraying edges. As time unfolded, I sensed shadows lurking just over the horizon, shadows that would come to unravel not just my relationship with Eliza, but also my cherished connection with David. Little did I know that the foundation we built on love was being tested by forces I could scarcely comprehend. And yet, my heart clenched with hope, hoping that love would prevail, that respect would remain a cornerstone of our family. The holiday season arrived, wrapping our home in a cozy embrace. Pine garlands adorned the walls, and the comforting aroma of cinnamon and freshly baked cookies filled the air, promising a joyful celebration. David and Eliza were busy preparing for their engagement celebration, and I felt a mix of excitement and pride flickering in my chest. Eliza entered our lives like a breath of fresh air with her bright smile and easy laughter. I remember that first meeting when she greeted me warmly, her charm instantaneous and captivating. She spoke about her aspirations, and I wanted to believe that she would embrace the values I held close, a blend of love, respect, and tradition. However, beneath the bright exterior of hospitality, a nagging tension lingered. As I prepared my famous lasagna, the pride swelling within me was quickly interrupted by unease. I noticed the subtle shift in our interactions. Eliza's comments, though masked in politeness, often undermined my efforts. At one dinner, she leaned in close and interrupted me as I recounted a cherished memory about David's childhood. "Oh, Maria, that's sweet, but in my family, we always—" Her words hung in the air, and I felt small and overlooked as the laughter around us faded into a distant pulse. David's eyes sparkled as he laughed, completely oblivious to Eliza's subtle jabs aimed at me. During another gathering, as I served fresh bread, Eliza remarked, "You should really modernize your cooking style, Maria. Maybe we should try something different?" David chuckled, brushing it off like a joke, while my heart sank. Each word weighed heavy, and I felt the tender warmth of our family being replaced with a biting chill. With each interaction, I realized the bond we'd built over years was increasingly at risk. Eliza's charm soon morphed into a quiet discord, and with every sliver of her ridicule, I felt the fragile threads of our connection begin to unravel. I fought to keep my composure. I wanted to protect my family and my relationship with David, but it was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore the growing distance between us. In the weeks that followed our gatherings, I noticed how Eliza's laughter and bright demeanor overshadowed the very essence of what united us. I could feel my efforts to connect with David slipping away as Eliza subtly guided the conversations and decisions in ways that left me feeling invisible. The holidays rolled around and the tension grew like an uninvited guest. While I prepared a festive table filled with heartfelt dishes, Eliza commented, "Why not add some more vibrant colors to your decorations, Maria? They're a little plain." I caught a glimpse of David's reaction, a faint chuckle, but inside my spirit quaked at the wounded pride I felt amidst the colorful festivities. Every interaction began to feel like a dance of tension, laughter echoing hollowly against the weight of unspoken words. I longed to speak up, to explain to David how his unwavering loyalty to Eliza was eroding the joy of our cherished family traditions. Fear held me back. What if he dismissed my concerns or saw me as overly critical? As the holiday lights twinkled around us, I tried to calm the storm brewing within my heart. I watched Eliza easily weave herself into the tapestry of our lives, smoothing over the frayed edges with charming smiles, while I quietly battled the resentment building toward her. One evening, after a particularly strained dinner, I finally turned to David, intent on bridging the widening gap. "David, there's something I want to talk about," I began, my voice trembling with urgency. But before I could gather my thoughts, Eliza interrupted with a bright smile and a light laugh, pulling him back into her orbit as if my words never existed. Frustration surged within me, leaving a bitter taste as I pulled into myself once again. I was losing my son, and with every flippant comment from Eliza, I felt haunted by the possibility that my love and sacrifices may not hold enough weight to lift our family from this fracture. It was as if the foundation we had built together was slowly being eroded, not by time or neglect, but by a force I had not anticipated. I feared that I would no longer be able to reclaim my place, a vital part of David's world, while Eliza continued to entwine herself in our lives. I steeled myself, realizing I would need to confront these feelings and stand firm in my worth before I lost everything I had cherished. The path ahead would be demanding, but I knew I had to find a way to navigate this growing complexity, to not just hold on to my son, but to also reclaim the respect and love that should thrive within our family. As winter settled over our home, the chill seemed to seep deeper than just the air. Each snowflake that landed outside mirrored the growing distance I felt from my son, David. I glanced out the window, watching the bare branches sway against a gray sky, and inside me a decision began to crystallize, a commitment to reclaim my dignity and reestablish my place within our family. Dinner was approaching, and I sensed it was a moment for truth. I took a deep breath and repeated the mantra that had become my anchor through the tension. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. These words danced in my mind, steadying me against the fear of confronting Eliza, who had skillfully woven herself into the fabric of our family. Preparing for the gathering felt like rehearsing for a performance where my heart was on the line. I set the table with care, the white linens and polished silverware a genteel mask for the turmoil swirling inside me. I envisioned how David would smile bright and warm, chatting animatedly with Eliza, while I would sit quietly, waiting for the right moment to share my thoughts. My heart pounded as anticipation mingled with fear. I practiced statements to convey the importance of respect and love, envisioning how I might bridge the gap with David. This is about family, I would say, hoping my words would resonate amidst the chilling remarks and condescension I'd endured. When the day arrived, I dressed in my favorite emerald blouse, one that made me feel vibrant and alive. Each careful movement in the kitchen felt significant. As I stirred the pot of stew, the sense of home and memories enveloped me. But when Eliza walked in with her radiant smile, it was as though the warmth I cultivated was doused by a sudden chill. The family dinner unfolded around me, laughter and chatter filling the air. I felt an itch in my throat as I watched David and Eliza exchange light-hearted banter, his eyes sparkling as if she were the light to his world. My heart ached for the bond we once shared, now obscured by misunderstandings and Eliza's jabs. As dinner progressed, I could hear Eliza's laughter pealing over the table like an unsettling melody. It was evident that her charm masked an unsettling undertone. I played with my food, bracing myself for the moment I would finally share my feelings with David. After serving a homemade dessert, I made my move. The table became quiet, swaying under the weight of held breaths and the flickering candlelights. "David," I began, my voice shaking slightly but steady, "there's something I wanted to address tonight." Before I could dive deeper, Eliza interjected, her laughter brimming with an edge. "Oh, Maria, don't make it all about serious talk. We're here to have fun, right?" Her comment hung in the air, a playful jab that struck harder than she intended. David laughed, and my heart sank as I felt the shards of my moment being swept away. "Please, just let me finish," I said, my heart racing. This was it, the moment to reclaim my voice. I know family dinners should be light-hearted, but my feelings matter too. It's become difficult for me to sit here while reminding myself of all the sacrifices I made for our family. David paused, his laughter fading slightly. My words held his attention, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Every second felt stretched taut like a wire. I had to press on before the moment slipped away again. "I love you both. I just need you to understand how I feel pushed aside. I want us to lift each other as a family, not tear each other down, particularly through jest that cuts deep." I felt vulnerable, exposed, but despite the anxious flutter in my stomach, I held my gaze steady. Eliza's smile faltered for an instant, the room hanging precariously between tension and reflection. David looked between us, caught between his loyalty to Eliza and his love for me. The depth of my feelings created a palpable rift for the first time. Releasing my breath, I felt lighter as I continued with cautious determination. Please understand, I want us to celebrate our family's history, not dismiss it. Every memory we share is woven together, and I believe we can create new ones that honor that foundation." Silence enveloped us. Eliza's confidence flickered under the weight of my words, and I could see the gears turning in David's mind. His hand tensed on the table. As I waited, my heart raced. I had finally found my voice. This was just the beginning, but in this moment, I had chosen to confront the darkness that threatened to engulf us. I hoped David would appreciate my vulnerability, my determination to preserve not just my place, but our family's integrity. The tension hung in the air, laden with unspoken possibilities. I realized that no matter how uncertain the outcome, reclaiming my voice had solidified my dignity. It was time to stand firm and ensure my heart remained unmuted, an independent light shining amid the shadows. The silence that settled around the dinner table felt electric, charged with possibilities. I held my breath, anticipating David's response, hoping for understanding and support. After what felt like an eternity, he shifted in his seat, glancing from Eliza to me, trying to gauge the rift I had exposed. "How can you say those things, Mom? Eliza is a part of our lives now, and we're supposed to be having fun," he replied, his voice tinged with confusion. I felt the weight of his disappointment, like a stone in my chest. As much as I wanted to explain, the moment felt precarious. I knew if I let my emotions spill over into defensiveness, I would lose him again. "I understand that, David, but I need you to see my perspective. It's hard to celebrate when I feel like an outsider," I managed, keeping my tone even, but frayed edges slipped through. Eliza folded her arms, her expression shifting from concern to something colder, something sharper. I knew then that her grip on David was firm, too firm, and I needed to tread carefully to regain my footing. The dinner continued, but the joyous air was gone, replaced by an invisible barrier separating us. Eliza attempted to lift the mood with stories of her own family traditions, but they felt like daggers, contrasting painfully with the warmth of my memories that once defined our family. I forced a smile, but inside, I registered every glance and subtle shift in their dynamic. In the days that followed, I spent hours replaying the night in my mind, analyzing every moment of that dinner. I couldn't help but feel that I had exposed something deeper, an undercurrent of manipulation that Eliza wielded so effortlessly. I'd seen her artful conversation style before, but now it stirred a protective instinct within me, prompting me to dig deeper. One afternoon, while I arranged the bouquets of fresh flowers in the kitchen, I reached for my phone, contemplating the notion of gathering evidence. I needed to document her words, her influence, her tactics. It was a cutthroat idea that sprang into my mind, but by now I felt like a detective in my own life, witnessing the slow erosion of my family. I scoured through a collection of text messages and social media exchanges, searching for clues. Each exchange between David and Eliza seemed innocent enough, casual flirtations and shared memes, but then I began to notice patterns, subtle remarks that seemed more about undermining than building up. Her words dripped with sweetness, yet concealed barbed sarcasm. The more I examined their conversations, the more a story unfolded, one that suggested manipulation cloaked in humor. She would use inside jokes to create exclusivity, separate herself from me, and even romanticize disdain toward traditions I had worked so hard to uphold. An unsettling realization gripped me. This wasn't merely a simple rivalry. It felt orchestrated, designed to dismantle our family bonds. I recalled Eliza's comment from dinner about my baking. "Why not modernize your cooking style, Maria?" As if my efforts were outdated. I felt a wave of anger wash over me. Questions flooded my mind. How had I let this happen? Was David so enthralled that he couldn't recognize what was at stake? Determined to gather more evidence, I invited a close friend over for tea, someone who had known David since he was a boy. Over steaming cups and warm pastries, I shared everything. The feeling of being sidelined at dinner, Eliza's comments, my perception of their dynamic. My friend's sympathetic ear provided comfort, and she gently encouraged me to confront my fears, urging me to reach out for clarity. The idea of confronting Eliza directly was daunting. After all, she was David's fiancée. I stewed over how to approach the situation, my hands trembling slightly as I stirred my tea. I knew I needed to strategize, finding an opportunity to expose Eliza's manipulation while also preserving my relationship with David. That afternoon, I decided to visit the local park where they often went for picnics. Weeks earlier, I had overheard their plans through the kitchen wall, their laughter blending with the sounds of birds. Standing among the vibrant colors of autumn leaves, I felt my resolve hardening. As I strolled through the park, I stumbled upon them seated beneath a sprawling oak tree, laughter rising like music into the crisp air. For a moment, I felt an ache of longing to reclaim what was slipping away, my connection with David. Stepping back into the bushes, I took a breath, collecting my thoughts. The longer I observed, the sharper the details became. Eliza leaned into David, her hand resting on his knee. Her laughter rang like a bell, and he leaned back, swept away in her charm. I noticed how she positioned herself to frame him, tilting her head just so, using her body language to monopolize his attention. That subtle dance, that positioning, it was a performance I couldn't ignore. Suddenly, she threw out a dismissive comment about family history. "They just don't get it, David. It was different back then." I felt a flash of heat course through me. The very bond I had worked years to create was attacked in the guise of friendly banter. I knew then the time for voicing my concerns directly to David was dawning. But first, I would need to gather concrete evidence, a safety net of understanding to prepare him for the truths I had unearthed. By the time I returned home, the light had begun to fade, reflecting a sense of urgency in my heart. I sat at my kitchen table and crafted an outline of my plan, carefully detailing instances I had witnessed, weaving a narrative that underscored Eliza's behavior. I wanted my words to carry weight, but I knew I had to present them gently so that David could see Eliza's patterns, not just hear my fears. Each word penned down felt like a channeling of the sorrow and anger that had gripped me. I wanted him to understand this wasn't about taking sides. It was about reuniting our family, reclaiming the sacredness of our shared history. As I prepared for my next family dinner, determination ignited within me. I would share my findings with David and present a united stand, highlighting that love flourishes where respect meets honesty. No longer would I act like a passive bystander. It was time to illuminate the shadows and healing the fracture that threatened to break our family apart. The day of the family dinner arrived, saturated with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. I meticulously prepared the house, ensuring every detail radiated warmth and welcome. Fresh flowers graced the dining table, their fragrance intertwining with the rich aroma of roasted chicken filling the air. For me, this dinner wasn't just about food. It felt like a crucial opportunity to engage with David about the changes in our family dynamics. As I set the table, the doorbell sounded, propelling my heart into a rapid beat. David and Eliza entered, the atmosphere instantly shifting with their arrival. David's light-hearted chatter filled the room while Eliza charmed with confidence, adorned in a striking floral dress. I admired her poise, but unease coiled in my stomach, a reminder that this was the woman who had subtly twisted our familial bonds, and tonight I had to confront that challenge. Drawing a deep breath, I repeated my mantra. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. This grounded me, a protective barrier against the confrontation that loomed. As dinner progressed, Eliza effortlessly navigated conversation, weaving light-hearted stories from her own childhood that pushed aside the warmth of my family's history. Each laugh of hers felt like a dagger, a reminder of the distance I had felt creeping in. I forced a smile, but unease simmered beneath the surface. When dessert was served, the moment I had braced myself for was finally at hand. I turned to David, who was still lost in Eliza's latest tale, and seized the opportunity to speak up. David, I need to talk to you about something important. He glanced at me, confusion shadowing his face. What's up, Mom? It's about how we interact as a family. Lately, I've felt like I'm losing my place, and it hurts. My voice was steady, but I felt vulnerable, stepping into the light of this difficult conversation. Eliza leaned back, her expression shifting, a hint of concern tarnished by the sharpness of her gaze. You've always been dramatic, Maria, she said with a tinkling laugh, but I detected an edge beneath her teasing. This isn't about drama, Eliza, I replied evenly, setting the boundary. It's about wanting to preserve the connection we hold dear in this family. I could see David lingering in confusion, caught between his loyalty to Eliza and his love for me. Mom, we're just trying to make new memories, he said, but the uncertainty in his voice made my heart sink. The desire to explain without alienating him was palpable. Wouldn't you agree that it's important to move forward? Of course, I want us to create new memories together, David, I countered gently. But it's essential to recognize that our past is part of who we are. We shouldn't sideline it, especially at the expense of our connections. A heavy silence settled in, the tension like a weight pressing down on us. I sensed the need to provide clarity. It was time to reveal my observations. The moments I believed demonstrated Eliza's manipulative behavior without casting blame overly sharply. I've noticed that some interactions have a tone I think we all need to address. Sometimes it feels as though the punchlines are layered with ridicule, I said, studying David's face earnestly. The way you speak of our history, Eliza, often seems dismissive, and it feels hurtful to me. The accusation hung in the air, and Eliza's pleasant mask slipped for the briefest moment as her eyes narrowed. David shifted in his chair, his expression a tumult of confusion and concern. I want us to lift one another, not tear each other down. Love should flourish in honesty, and I believe we all can have a place together, I continued, drawing courage from my intentions. This is not about picking sides. It's about nurturing our family's integrity. Eliza's reaction was swift. Honestly, Maria, it's about time you adapt. You can't expect me to fade into the background. I'm building a future here, and if that means someone gets uncomfortable, then so be it. Her words stung. Each syllable felt like an accusation flung my way, but I refused to back down. This is something we all need to talk about. I've sacrificed so much for our family. I want you to understand where I'm coming from, not as a competition, but as a plea for comprehension. I could feel a shift in the room, the air thick with uncertainty, as David surveyed the situation. I love you both. I can't be in the middle, he said, expressing the agony of his predicament. But even in his turmoil, I detected a glimmer of understanding beginning to flicker beneath the surface. David, I pressed gently, leaning closer. I'm asking you to see this for what it truly is. It's about recognizing that the dynamics within our unit need nurturing. We can't rush forward into the future without everyone involved. Just then, Eliza responded, her tone tinged with righteous indignation. "I'm not responsible for your feelings," she snapped, but I sensed the mask of confidence cracking. "It's unfair of you to place that burden on me." In that moment, emboldened by David's wavering loyalty and the tension that hung between us, I pushed forward. "You're not responsible for my feelings, but we're all accountable for how we treat one another. This isn't just an isolated incident. There's a history to consider, a framework of love and sacrifice that should be respected." Silence enveloped us, the weight of my words hanging suspended in the air. I could see David processing this, wrestling with his emotions. What if we all tried a little harder to understand each other instead of separating into teams? I suggested, my voice steady. The kitchen echoed the clinking of spoons against dishes, a reminder of unity. Let's reshape our family dynamic into something that embraces all of us. We can create a future together, shaped by the love from our past. As I concluded my thoughts, I felt the presence of possibility. A chance for change resided in the air. David's gaze softened, caught between the love for his mother and the partnership he had with Eliza. Unlocking that door felt monumental. "Look," he said, taking a deep breath, surveying our reactions, "I don't want to dismiss either of you. I love both of you in different ways, and I want to help us find common ground." I grasped onto that glimmer of hope, the realization washing over me that perhaps I had chipped away at the wall between us, exposing our shared vulnerability. It was a strategic step forward, a chance for dialogue where we could rebuild the cracks in our familial tapestry. Still, in that moment, I could see the discomfort lining Eliza's features. I knew this wouldn't be easy, but this was the opportunity I had sought, an opening for healing, founded on the promise of understanding. Together, we could pave the way into a shared future, if we dared to embrace the complexities of our history. And just like that, the stage was set for the family to confront its shadows, an invitation for clarity, growth, and ultimately, reconnection. With a fragile thread of hope weaving through the air, I steeled myself for the path ahead. My mind raced with possibilities, particularly the need to carefully navigate Eliza's defensiveness as we ventured into these uncharted waters together. If I was to drive home the importance of our unity, I had to do so without creating further division. The next family gathering was already on the calendar, David's birthday dinner. It was pivotal, a chance to showcase our resilience and reaffirm our commitments to one another. In the days leading up to the occasion, I felt a surge of determination. This dinner wouldn't just be an ordinary celebration. It would be the moment we reshaped our family narrative. I decided to utilize my culinary skills to create a radiant centerpiece that embodied the spirit of togetherness. As I gathered ingredients for David's favorite dish, his mother's special lasagna, old memories flooded back, anchoring me to our family's history. Hand-me-down recipes, the flour-dusted countertops, the scent of baked mozzarella wafting through the house. Each detail reminded me of shared times spent in laughter and love. That evening, the kitchen pulsed with energy as I prepared. The clattering of pots became a symphony that drowned out my anxious thoughts. I envisioned the gathering, a bountiful table set with care, each place marked with love. As guests arrived, I softly embraced David, whispering birthday wishes filled with warmth and love. He seemed to sense my determination, the unyielding resolve in my heart. Eliza followed closely behind, her expression a mix of anticipation and guardedness. Soon we all gathered around the table, laughter and chatter filling the room. I placed the lasagna down in the center, steam rising like a gentle invitation. "This one's for you, David. I announced with a smile, my heart pounding. It wasn't just a dish. It was my way of pulling threads back together, reminding us all of our shared history. Throughout dinner, I kept my eyes on Eliza, searching for signs of openness amidst her carefully curated facade. She chuckled at David's jokes, but her posture remained rigid, arms crossed tightly. The energy in the room ebbed and flowed like the tide as I presented moments filled with warmth, a collage of shared memories, from birthday parties to vacation snapshots that adorned my living room wall. "Do you remember the summer we all went to the beach?" I prompted, breaking the ice with a soft laugh. David was so small, running through the waves and squealing with delight. I watched as David's face lit up, easily picking up the nostalgia. It sparked something within Eliza, too, a glimpse of recognition breaking through her defenses. "Yeah, I remember," she said quietly, arms still crossed but her voice softer. "It was so much fun." Taking a breath, I pressed ahead. Those were beautiful memories that remind us of how interconnected we are, and I believe it's essential for all of us to continue creating new moments together while holding space for the past. In that instant, I sensed David's attention sharpen. He was attuned, his gaze balancing thoughtfully between Eliza and me. However, I knew I needed to do more than stir memories. It was essential to craft a safe space where we could all feel valued and responsible for maintaining this unity. Choosing my words carefully, I took the opportunity to draw Eliza closer. "I understand that stepping into our family isn't easy, particularly with the weight of our history," I continued, my voice steady yet gentle. "But together we can bring our distinct stories into a shared fabric. It doesn't have to be about competition or exclusion. We really can strengthen our bond." Eliza glanced down, the curl of her lips barely visible beneath the mask she'd put on. I could see the subtle shift in her demeanor. Perhaps she was evaluating my invitation to connection. "Family isn't just about blood. It's about forging relationships. I want to build that with you," I added sincerely, reaching across the table with an earnestness that came from deep within. As the dinner progressed, the atmosphere felt lighter, but I could see Eliza wrestling with the moment. I pressed on with care, inviting her to share her own memories, to weave her narrative into the tapestry. "Do you have memories from your own birthdays? We'd love to hear them," I asked her directly, encouraging her participation and reminding her that her voice held weight too. She took a sip of her water, looking slightly taken aback, but then her expression softened. "My birthday celebrations were always small, just my parents and me, but they meant a lot," she admitted. The walls began to thaw as she shared, a river of emotional connection flowing between us. "Small moments can be the most meaningful," I replied, striving to draw her in further. "Each thread strengthens our family fabric, forming a vibrant tapestry. We can celebrate those moments together." The more we engaged, the more I could see her guard lowering. I quietly breathed a sigh of relief, acknowledging that my strategy was working. Each delicate word was a building block, turning obstacles into bridges. This was a step toward the reconciliation I had envisioned. As dessert was served, I felt the atmosphere shift once again. I looked at David, who seemed to glow under the warmth of our newfound discussions. "Thank you both for sharing and for opening up," he said, his voice full of gratitude. "This is what I've always hoped for, our family coming together." "No pressure," I reassured him, returning my attention to Eliza, intent on making her feel just as validated as my son. "This journey isn't rushed. It takes time for understanding to blossom." We continued sharing laughter, memories, and heartfelt moments, but more importantly, we had begun to uncover the roots that would hold us steady in times of uncertainty. As dinner concluded, I felt a quiet pride swell inside me. Perhaps we really could heal some of the fractures that had formed. The night ended with David blowing out the candles on his cake, the soft glow illuminating the semblance of unity we had wielded together. As he made his wish, I held on to the hope that the deepest wish of all, reconnection, was becoming our shared goal. With the table tidied and the laughter of the night echoing in my mind, I realized that this gathering had been a transformative moment. I'd stepped into the fray with intention, and slowly, we had begun to weave our individual stories into a collective narrative. This was just the beginning, but I sensed we were moving toward a brighter chapter in our family saga, one rooted in acceptance, dialogue, and shared history. In the days following David's birthday dinner, a gradual shift enveloped our family. An air of lightness filled our interactions, signaling that our vulnerability had begun to pave the way for deeper connection. Eliza even displayed fleeting moments of warmth. Each morning brought whispers of hope as I pondered our budding relationship. The afternoon Eliza invited me over for lunch, my mind raced with anticipation. Was she reaching out to solidify our bond, or would it be a testing ground for our fragile understanding? As I stepped into her meticulously arranged kitchen, the inviting aroma of freshly baked bread wrapped around me like a comforting embrace. Yet, despite the delightful setting, an undercurrent of unease lingered in the atmosphere. "Thanks for coming, Maria," Eliza said, her smile betraying a hint of tension. I could feel my heart quicken. This might be an opportunity for real dialogue. We sat at her ornate dining table and began to eat. Light conversation flowed initially, centered around our work lives. Yet, the heaviness lingered as I sensed Eliza's hesitation. Finally, I needed to push beyond the polite small talk. "Eliza, is something on your mind?" I beckoned gently, sensing the emotional walls that still stood between us. "I'm just trying to understand how things will be now," she admitted, her voice soft and vulnerable. "You and David really bonded last week, and I'm feeling unsure of how I fit into that equation." My words were urgent but gentle. "You don't have to compete with the past," I asserted. "Our histories can exist side by side. They can strengthen the tapestry we are weaving together." Her eyes flickered with surprise, then softened. "Do you truly believe that?" she asked, searching for sincere assurance. "I do," I affirmed, clutching onto the hope bubbling within me. "We can honor the past while creating a vibrant new future." Feeling a rush of inspiration, I proposed, "Why don't we start a family tradition together? Something that allows us to cherish our unique stories while building new memories." An excited spark ignited in her expression. "A family tradition could be really nice, a way for us to bond." "Yes, we could designate an annual family day, a day dedicated to exploring places together, sharing laughter and experiences, maybe even creating a scrapbook that captures our time as a family," I suggested. As we discussed ideas, I watched the tension melt away, replaced with anticipation. A shared vision began to take root, and I embraced every moment of it. In a shimmering moment where our hopes aligned, the front door opened and David walked in, his entrance tinged with a casual brightness. "What's going on here?" he asked playfully, noticing the warmth radiating between us. Eliza chimed in. "We're planning a family day, just something to help us connect." Pride beamed on David's face and my heart soared with the possibility that we had crossed a significant threshold. His delight solidified the sense that our dialogue had transcended prior discomfort. As lunch drew to a close, I felt an addictive zing of fulfillment rising within me. Eliza was shedding layers of her defenses, showing me her insecurities, her hopes. This was genuine progress. We each felt the weight lift as we all excitedly shared in thoughts. "This sounds amazing," David said. beaming with an enthusiasm that felt contagious. We can all explore and discover new memories together. I love it. Agreements unfolded spontaneously, and plans quickly took shape, encompassing everything from park outings to shared dinners and investment in each other's lives. We envisioned a family marked by laughter, deep connection, and mutual understanding. As Eliza and I exchanged glances, I could see that the potential for reconciliation had reached a new pinnacle. In that bright kitchen, filled with aromas and laughter, we were beginning to craft something enduring, a living tapestry woven with our individual lives, enhanced, not overshadowed, by one another. The day had morphed into something monumental, a vibrant chord struck in the fabric of our family. Each smile exchanged was a stitch binding our stories together in a shared narrative of hope and transformation. I felt a profound sense of purpose, knowing we had taken a leap toward a future we could collectively cherish.